Hey, welcome. So today we'll be talking about the success matrix. How to turn failure into success. How to turn failure into success. Because your failure is actually successfully staying in your comfort zone. So you are succeeding. Now, to talk about this, I've created a whiteboard so that I can further explain it and make it easier for both of us. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to share that with you. There we go. There we go. Let me zoom in into this first. Like Plato once said, in the knowledgeable realm, the form of the good is the last thing to be seen, and it is reached only with difficulty. Once one has seen it, however, one must conclude that it is the cause of all that is correct and beautiful in anything, that it produces both light and its source in the visible realm, and that in the intelligible realm it controls and provides truth and understanding, so that anyone who is to act sensibly in private or public must see it. I know this is a bunch of fancy words of just saying, learn how to find truth, the ultimate understanding, yourself. This is another way of saying, find yourself, understand yourself, and once you've understand that, and you've burned through all desires and everything that you're not, just simply awaken to the realization that that's going to filter out anything that does not fit into who you are. So it'll be like a sword, cutting through everything in the visible realm. Plato here talks about the knowledgeable realm as the mind, the visible realm as reality, as everything that we perceive and see, so that anyone who is to act sensibly in private or public must see it. That means if you think about it or act it, if you're finding yourself and you found yourself and you found the ultimate truth, you're going to be able to act in the way of reflection, and you're going to reflect that truth. We're going to get into what it means to find yourself, because ultimately that's what we're succeeding into. So stay until the end of the video, because I have to keep showing you the rest of the presentation. Understanding is the heartwood of all spoken words, Buddha. Now, this is a little bit more airy-fairy, and yet still it's a very practical, knowledgeable wisdom. Because understanding is all about perceiving, conceptualizing, and acting. Understanding is not simply experiencing something and learning something, reading a book and just going with it. No, understanding is that you truly grasp the notion of what it means to be that teaching. Understanding enlightenment is one of the most pursued after careers, paths in life, experiences, if you want to call it that way. And yet, embodying enlightenment is just all about being present. So understanding is embodying that teaching. The hardwood of all spoken words, everything that you speak into existence, at the heart of it, you truly must be able to embody what you're saying. So if you're truly successful, you must have embodied the journey of going from successfully comfortable to failing out of your comfortable zone and succeeding into expansive zone, which we'll be talking about right now. So understanding is the hardwood of all spoken words just talks about how expand out of your comfort zone so that you can embody whatever you understand, so that you can finally be the reflection of whatever you're acting, being, and succeeding in. But he knows better. It is the law. The only meaningful life is a life that strives for the individual realization, absolute and unconditional, of its own particular law. To the extent that a man isn't true to the law of his being, he has failed to realize his own life's meaning. This, once again, talks about expanding to find who you are, finding your path, and actualizing, taking yourself out of all the comfort zones so you can finally awaken to the realization that your path is ultimately your path because it has been chosen for you through all your choices of getting out of your comfort zone and just expanding out of that successful comfort zone. Because you are successful. If you're seeking success, you're already successful. You already have everything that you need to be alive. You wouldn't be looking at this video if not. You already have everything that you need to be where you are, because you wouldn't be here if you're not. You have every successful factor. You have every successful factor to be yourself here and now. There's nothing stopping you from being successful. It's just expanding and actualizing out of that takes the hardest, most challenging path. So that's what we'll be talking about now. The success matrix. Well, first of all, let's just zoom into comfortable success. The first line, comfortable success, talks about the aspect, where you are right now, what it feels like. It's comfortable. That's success. Because to give you an example, for example, you're walking by the street, you're feeling really good about yourself, you're not thinking, you're not overthinking, you're just watching the trees, just feeling good about yourself. That's a normal day for you. It's just normal, right? That's comfortable because you're walking by, you're not overthinking, you're just chill about it. Now, what is causing you to feel comfortable usually is self-sabotage. If we start contextualizing this walking down the street in the park looking at the trees from I just came out of a meeting that I couldn't successfully solve, therefore I'm going for a walk looking at the trees, it's just a way of self-sabotaging. This is a healthy way. You're going for a walk. And this is the healthy example so that you can see the most positive version of it. On the other hand, for example, you could have had a terrible meeting and instead of going for a walk looking to the trees, you're probably going to go eat your feelings. You're going to go smoke your feelings. You're going to go have sex. You're going to go do terrestrial things, things of the body, so that you can feel that you have some sense of control after being in a situation where you lost all control. That's why comfortable success is where you're at. It's the feeling. Self-sabotage is what allows you to keep yourself coming back to that comfort zone so it can keep you there and it can always stay in that sensation, feeling, perception. Now the final one, awareness, talks about what can get you out of there. If you're comfortable and you're successfully being comfortable because self-sabotage is keeping you there, what can get you out of there? What could help you, like we see with this arrow, what we see with this arrow, what we see with this arrow, and this arrow? What can help you get out of it? Awareness. When you become aware of all those patterns that keep you stuck where you're comfortable and are not allowing you to expand out of your comfort zone to start failing and actually getting better at new things, you can actually transcend those patterns. So if you can become aware of it, you can transcend it. Until then, you're going to stay comfortable and you're going to be in your comfort zone so that you can keep doing what you know and that's familiar for you. Now, if we expand out and we become aware of all those patterns that keep us stuck, we can start getting into the realm of pressing failure. I know there is a lot of color, there's a lot of weird arrows, and later on they're going to see a lot of weird images. So for now, just focus upon what we're talking about in the center. Just the aspects, the tools, and the ways out. For now, in the green circle that you can see here, pressing failure talks about literally getting out of your comfort zone and then being pressed by all the failure. Because when you step out of your comfort zone, with the example of walking by, say that instead of walking out, eating your feelings, smoking your feelings, whatever your pattern is, instead of doing that, you would have stayed in a meeting until you found a way to fail and yet still doing something new. So say for example, you're in the meeting and you're told that you did a wrong job and that this doesn't work. Cool. Instead of going out to feel safety, to feel protected because you're under control, you could have stayed in that meeting and then just tried certain things out to solve it in the moment, obviously failing because you don't know what you're doing, and yet still trying new things to break out of those habits that bring you back to safety. Maybe it's even a little bit higher degrees of awareness, and we're gonna get into that. Maybe they are thoughts in your mind. Instead of acting, you're thinking a certain way that feels familiar. So that's why we're gonna go into what is causing you to stay. Because once you get out of your comfort zone, some people can get out of the comfort zone, and we've all gotten out of the comfort zone. Staying in present failure is another comfortable zone. Some people are just comfortable with failing, and they become so comfortable that they just stay failing. What keeps them there is the subtlety of anxiety. Because anxiety is this emotional feeling and energy in your body that contains you failing. Because you're constantly just doing and doing and doing, and you're always failing and failing, and that anxiety keeps you doing things and failing and learning and doing whatever you want to call it, and yet you're anxious. You're always doing because you're pursuing things out of fear. So, what can get you out of that fear that keeps you stuck in failing patterns is clarity. Because clarity can help you align with doing things from a sense of joy, pursuit, enlightenment, happiness, joy, love, call it as you wish. You start going from those lower degrees consciousness feelings to higher degrees consciousness feelings. So instead of pursuing things out of the fear of failing, pursuing things out of the fear of succeeding and doing it because you have to do it, perfectionism, instead of finding and doing and seeking from that aspect, you find, seek, and do from higher degrees. You're just enjoying the process of creating. You're just enjoying the process of doing. So in that example we talked about a second ago, instead of simply staying to take action, you don't take action first. Just sit in your body while you're being told that you're failing, and then look at the situation from a higher degree. And once you look at it from a higher degree, you get to the realization that there are actions that you could have taken that you didn't, so that now you can take them because you have a clearer mind and you have gained further understanding of the situation. Now, if we go into expansive success, after we've gotten clear on what we could have taken action on so that we can take action now, we get into the realms of expansive success. And that's when we start finding true success. Because first you were comfortable. Yeah, you were successful in the comfortable, familiar patterns. After you failed, you got out of that comfort zone. Now you're getting into the realms of expansive success. Actually, just diving deeper into who you are and finding those aspects of yourself that you couldn't find before. Expansive success. So in this case, in the example of the meeting, now that you've gained clarity and understand what actions you can take, you simply take those actions. And then all of a sudden, the meeting gets solved. Things that were not going the right way start going the right way. And then you just feel good and just sit in the body, sit in your seat, and just silently observe how everything starts going the right way. Now, there's still shadow aspects. There's still parts of your consciousness and your psyche that are going to be crying, wailing, wallowing around. And that is in your mind. Your conscious awareness of the thoughts in your mind. You're going to start overthinking. Imposter syndrome, for example, is something that can be seen at this expansive success. Since you still have been used to failing, and there is still a part of you that is comfortable with self-sabotaging, and there is anxiety and self-sabotage battling to come back and pull you back in the expansive success areas, you're going to find that you're overthinking. Am I the right one for this? Who am I to tell people about this? Why am I solving this? How is it possible? Why? What is it? Maybe if I can and then you start just thinking about so many different things that your mind starts concocting this cocktail of emotional thoughts that bring you back slowly, and then that's what pulls you back in to comfortable success again. So you've gone from comfortable success to pressing failure to expansive success. And that's when we start expanding out of expansive success. So if you look at the arrow, for example, that I'm using here, after you go from expansive success back to comfortable success, you don't do this. You don't go back inside. What you do is actually go out, and once you're breaking here, and you're breaking, and you're trying to get out, and you break out, you're gonna see this arrow here. This is not a normal arrow. This is not like this one. This arrow here explains the 4 directions. Because once you start getting out of here, and you break this edge, you start choosing your path. You can go back into comfortable success. You can keep expanding. You can expand into less aspects of lower consciousness. And you can also go back into comfortable success. So there's 4 directions that you can choose from. After you've broken the edge of expansive success, after you've gone from comfortable success to pressing failure to expansive success self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking, awareness, clarity, embodiment, and you've started, which this is the key word, embodying the success, you're gonna break out. Because once you start embodying, imposter syndrome is gonna come to pull you back. You're gonna feel like you're not worth it. You're gonna feel like nothing's going the right way. Things are gonna start pulling you back. And that's when you get a choice. Do you want to keep going and just find yourself again here? Because and this, the comfortable success, pressing failure, and expansive success are just circles within circles within circles within circles. And this is the next circle. This one is the next circle after that one, and this one is the next circle after that one. Those three circles repeat until infinity, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next one. So, if you're here, for example, and you choose to go forwards, you're going to go back to comfortable success. Now, the only difference is, and we're going to use this graph right here, you're going from comfortable success, we're going to call this comfortable success, to pressing failure, to new sense of expansive success. This is where you're at right now. Once you break out of that limiting edge and you find yourself in another new comfortable success, like I just said, the key word, another new comfortable success, which means that if we were talking about linearity, this is how it would look like: comfortable success, pressing failure, expansive success. And then you break out of this, and once again, comfortable success, pressing failure, embodiment, which is, once again, expansive success. If you start observing it as a spiral instead, you will see that so many times you seem to be in the same place, although you're never in the actual same place. Because if you think about it, if you go from here to here to here to here, you are leveling up, and I quote, leveling up. Leveling up. In this one, you're not leveling up. You're going in higher and higher and higher degrees of consciousness. So in this one, you may find yourself comfortable success here, pressing failure here, and then expansive success just at the border. You break out, and then you're again comfortable success, pressing failure, expansive success. The only difference that now there is a gap in between these two, and you can be right where you started, just that at a completely new level, a higher degree of consciousness. So that means, going back to this one, that if you break out of this limiting edge and you start choosing your path and you decide to go forward, you're going to go back to self-sabotage with a new higher degree of consciousness. So your patterns are not going to repeat themselves. You're going to choose new patterns to learn from. That way you keep improving and keep improving until you find out that this is why it's called the success matrix. Because a matrix just means a womb within a womb within a womb. And you go from one to the next one to the next one. When you're just born, you're gestating in the womb of your mother. You're a little thing. Once you're born, you start opening your eyes, feeling your perceptions, feeling your feelings. You start seeing the world. You start doing things. You start acting. You start blah, blah. And you start waking up to the reality that you're in until you break out and you become 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And you start waking up again to reality, to reality, to reality. That is awakening. That is the matrix. From a womb in here to a womb in here to a womb in here, and you keep expanding and awakening and awakening and awakening till infinity, because there is no stopping. So that's why it's called the success matrix. That's been all for this first section. Now, if that's enough for you, you can leave the video, take whatever resonated, leave it here. If you want to go even deeper, because I love going deeper, like people could have already left by this, like people could have just left here, because Plato is not easy to integrate. It's a lot of wisdom and it's not easy. Buddha is just airy-fairy for some people. Carl Jung is a good one, although for me personally it's just too abstract at some times. Now, after they learned this, which is pretty much the whole purpose of life, to successfully be yourself, to then break yourself, to then find yourself again, putting the pieces back together. You then break that limit and choose the direction you want to go in. And that's when the next level comes in. And that's why I have prepared this one. Do not focus on the lines here, because these lines are going to be something that we're going to use for this one, and this one, and this one. So it goes higher later. For now, just focus upon the arrows themselves, because these are the 4 nodes. After we've expanded out of the successful matrix, the success matrix itself, you go from self-sabotage to anxiety to expansive success, and then finally break out to start choosing. Once you start choosing, you have 4 nodes to choose from. If you go north, you got eternity. If you go south, you got permanence. If you go east, you got infinity. If you go west, you got limitation. Now let's start explaining what each of them mean by starting with infinity. If you go from, this is you, if you go from comfortable success to pressing failure, and then keep yourself here for a bit, and then break out of that limit, and then just start here, finding yourself, breaking yourself, finding yourself, and then you boop, break out of this limit, you're going to find that once again, you got the choice. If you go east, you're going to have infinity at your side. You can keep doing this cycle, self-sabotage, pressing failure, expansive success, self-sabotage, overthinking, self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking, self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking, and then sometimes you can go straight. You're going to have all this cycle repeated till infinity. So from here to here to here till infinity. After you break out of this limit, you're going to find yourself self-sabotaging again, and then you're going to be anxious again, then you're going to be overthinking again, you're going to break out, self-sabotaging again, anxiety, overthinking, till infinity. If you decide to go all east. Now, if you decide to go west, like we said, going back, you're going to get to realize that in just a second. First, we're going to go north. Because east is infinity, north is eternity. The y-axis is time, and then time perception. The x-axis is space, or temporal space perception, which means I'm here and now, then I keep moving as moments go by, I'm here now again, and then I'm here now again, and you keep moving, and it's as if you're moving in space and time, and yet you're still finding yourself being the same person. That's temporal space. So this is space. That means that east and west go x-axis, space. Y-axis, north and south, go time. So east, infinity, north, eternity. What does eternity mean? First, you understand that when you start breaking out of self-sabotage, and then you start finding yourself anxious, and you break out of that anxious cycle, and then you start overthinking, and then once again you break that cycle, you're going to find yourself self-sabotaging again. Now, with the only difference that like we said before, you're going to be in a spiral. So as you're in a spiral, you're going to find yourself in a new same spot. You're going to be in the same spot, yet you're going to be new. So you could have had the same pattern repeated, yet you're in a new state of awareness, so you can respond differently. That means that eternity is all about patterns repeating, yet you consciously becoming better at responding to them. So if I were to give you an example of both of them, infinity would be, I have problems starting a business. Then I start a business and find myself constantly worrying about leads. Then you constantly find leads, yet you don't have a way of nurturing them. So that's again self-sabotage, and then it repeats itself. That's the example. I want to start a business. I start a business and fail because I don't have leads. I start getting leads, and then boom, 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 boom. The spiral keeps continuing, and until you get to a point where even when you have $1 million, you're still finding yourself self-sabotaging, anxious, and overthinking. That's till infinity. Eternity will be more like, I want to start a business. I want to start a business. I want to start a business. With the only difference that I want to start a business and I self-sabotage to not start it. I want to start a business and I have analysis by paralysis, so I start not thinking about it, yet I start acting, yet the actions I take are out of fear, so I don't actually start, so I'm not doing anything, so I keep finding myself looking to start a business. And then here, you start some things and you start overthinking about, is it going to be perfect? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be good? So you never start a business, yet you're finding yourself responding to higher degrees of awareness. So the main problem is starting a business. Although, as you keep transcending from self-sabotage to anxiety to overthinking, instead of, I don't want to start a business because I can't have time, I don't have blah, 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 and you self-sabotage to not find a way to do it, you start getting anxious instead. So you start doing some things, yet you keep finding that you get anxious, so that's why you stop again. And once you stop again, you start overthinking, because when you stop, you then think about, oh, I have to start a business. So you're constantly in a loop for eternity. Although every single time you do something or you start thinking about starting a business, you're in a new same spot. You're in a higher degree of consciousness and a higher degree of awareness. So you find yourself that eventually you do start a business, and the way you start a business is with a higher degree of consciousness. Since you have eternity, you don't worry about time itself. You just worry about responding in a new way to each pattern that presents itself. That's eternity. Now we're going back to limitation and then permanence. So, limitation. If you were to go from self-sabotage to anxiety to overthinking, and then back inside, or like we would say here, west, because you got the choice and you have 4 nodes to choose from. If you go back inside, that's limiting yourself. And sometimes we do that. For example, I want to start a business. I start getting leads. I start nurturing those leads. And then instead of keep scaling my business, finding better ways to nurture the leads, finding better ways to keep the income coming, I go back to the starting a business phase by going deeper into the way I manage my business. So I start new things within the business. That would be called reinvesting in the business. And then you are self-sabotaging in a certain way so that you can keep going back and back and back, and you're limiting yourself. That's why certain businesses don't actually transcend, and they're like the pharma, like health industry, like the insurance, like the big companies. All they're looking for is more profit, more profit, more profit, instead of getting higher and higher and higher and higher to the point where they realize that it's not money that is actually fulfilling them. It's the fact that they're actually contributing to something around the world. So they don't get to that point because they're constantly going out and then coming back, going out and coming back. So that feels like this. I want to start a business. I start nurturing, I start getting leads, and then I'm finding myself in anxiety. And then I start nurturing those leads. So I go from self-sabotaging to anxiety to overthinking. And once I start overthinking, I overthink, I don't have money, I need more money, I want better clients. So you go back inside and then start going west, and you go back inside and go west to start implementing new strategies in the business. So you start once again, I need to start a business, so this time it's a higher degree of awareness. I don't need to start a business, I want to better my business. So I want to improve my business. So I start improving my business, and then I start self-sabotaging to start improving until finally I realize, okay, I'm so anxious, I don't want to do this anymore. Boom, I want to get out of the business. I get employees, I start working with people, I start finding a way of getting out of the business, and then I feel anxious because constantly I'm thinking about helping them and not helping myself, helping them and not helping myself. That's anxiety. You break out of that. And then you start, okay, you know what? I'm going to leave. I'm going to let them do whatever they need. I'm just going to look from afar. I'm going to find a CEO. Boom. You find a CEO. Then you start overthinking because, oh, is the CEO doing the right thing? Blah, 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 blah. And you're constantly limiting yourself. And then once you start breaking out of this side and you break out of the limiting edge of overthinking, once again, like we're seeing here, you always have a choice. So you get out and you have 4 nodes to choose from. Once again, you can choose, like I said, some people choose, they go back east. So they feel overthinking, they go back to the familiar, they go back to self-sabotage. So then they start going back into the business, and then they start self-sabotaging, and then they repeat this loop forever and ever and ever and ever, constantly limiting themselves more and more and more and more and more until they always stay here. And once they get out, they start getting out, they start getting out, they start getting out, they go back inside, go back inside, go back inside. It's always a repeating loop of in, out, in, out, in, out. So that's west. Now, what is south? Permanence. Permanence is the state of being present forever. I'm always here and now. So say, for example, like we said before, start a business, get leads, nurture those leads. You start choosing. And instead of going to infinity, instead of going to eternity, instead of going to limitation, you choose to go to permanence. So say, for example, you are here and you get leads. You break out of it because you start embodying a sense of always getting leads. So for you, it's normal to get leads. Maybe you just decide to stay there. So instead of repeating a pattern, instead of going in, out, out, and then in again, in again, in again, or going out, 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 and then out, and then out, and then out, and then out forever, you can also do like this is 1, 2, and 3 is 1, 2, 3. I'm out, and now I choose to find myself repeating new patterns. Out, 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 although the consciousness is completely different. So here is lower degrees of consciousness, higher degrees of consciousness, and you're constantly breaking out of that limiting edge, and again, getting a choice. So you get a choice. And once you're out, you choose again. So say, for example, in the fourth one, you break out of all three: self-sabotage, anxiety, and overthinking. You break out. And you choose permanence, which is south. Permanence would mean that you're out, so now you're staying at the same level which you got out, although self-sabotage, anxiety, and overthinking are basically here. So if you got leads, you're gonna find that you're gonna stay comfortable with getting leads until you start getting anxious because you need new leads, until you start overthinking about why I'm not getting more leads, and then you break out. And then you got, again, another choice. What is your choice? West, east, the other way around. East, west, north, south. Say, for example, you choose south again. You start getting better leads. This is self-sabotage, this is anxiety, this is overthinking. You start getting better leads, you start working with them, you start feeling comfortable working with them, then you start getting anxious because they're not good leads, then your good leads start getting out, so then you have to find new leads that are better than those, and you keep going, and you keep finding yourself once again breaking and getting a choice. What is this choice? South again, which means going down, east, west, north, south. Which do you choose? Say you choose south again. Once again, this repeats and you keep down. And it's always about the same pattern, getting leads. It always keeps going down and down and down. So that's the 4 nodes: infinity, eternity, limitation, permanence. Infinity, repeating the self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking matrix forever with new patterns every single time. Eternity, repeating the self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking pattern, although with new patterns that feel like different patterns because they are the same pattern. So the new patterns are actually the same pattern, they're just different because they're in higher degrees of consciousness. Limitation, going out of the self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking matrix and coming back and going back and in, and you'll go in and out. So you go out and then you come back in. And if you come back in, you can break out of the other side and you can choose to go back. So limitation is always you transcend and then you come back. Permanence, self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking, and then finding yourself at the edge and repeating that same pattern with the matrix. in newfound ways. So if I were to give examples, infinity, I'm always smoking. I have to start smoking. So I leave the smoking habit. I start feeling anxious and then I start overthinking. What if I can find new ways to don't feel like I need to smoke? And although I do want it, what if I start eating? And then you find a new pattern. And that pattern gets you out. So that's going to be the example. Infinity. That would mean that you keep repeating that addiction cycle forever, although you go from smoking to love. That's, for example, the highest degree jump, because love is the highest degree and fear would be smoking, the lowest degree. So you go from smoking to eating to fucking to making money to having friends to feeling social to having power to then just manipulating everybody, and then keep growing and growing towards love until you find that manipulation, success, money, and all those things don't make you happy and you have to love yourself. Boom. That would be kind of like the highest level projection of infinity, and I'm not even sure because that's infinity. It literally means it doesn't have an end. So it can go on and on and on forever. It all depends on your rate of expansion. Eternity. Eternity would mean I am smoking, I stop smoking, I feel anxious. I start feeling so anxious that I choose a new habit. I have to break out of that habit again, and then you get out of that habit, and then you choose a new habit. Now, in this one, you choose new habits, although they keep you in the same self-sabotaging anxiety, overthinking loop forever. So you go from smoking to eating to fucking, from smoking to eating to fucking. Every single time you go back, you have a higher degree of awareness. So you start realizing that eventually smoking is only filling a void. Eating is only filling a void. Fucking is only filling a void. So you stop all three of them eventually. Now you have eternity at your side. So this could take 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. Nobody knows. That's why it's eternity. If you keep choosing. That's something that you have to be clear on. If you keep choosing. Because remember, it's self-sabotage, anxiety, and overthinking. Out you go. Out you go, new choice. You get to choose. Do I keep repeating with north? Do I choose a new one? Say east? Do I choose to go back? Say south? Do I choose to go left? Say west? That's what makes it a lot more complicated. So that's why we're going to talk about this later. Now, that's the example. In the first one, you're repeating smoking, smoking, smoking until you find a new one, and then till infinity you find another one, and then another one, and then another one. This one is the same three things, the same three things, the same three things on a higher degree of consciousness until you realize there's something more. And you choose again. Now, limitation would be I'm smoking, I stop smoking, I feel anxious, I need something to stop feeling anxious, so I'm going to find a new thing, so I'm going to overthink it, and then I break out. When I break out, I go back to smoking. And then I break out, and then I break out, and then I break out. And once again, you can choose to go self-sabotage. You go from stopping to smoke to going back to smoke. And then if you're in the self-sabotage, you can go till infinity, you can go to eternity, you can go to permanence, you can go back to limitation. You get choices. So after 3 repeating patterns, you always get a choice. Do you want to repeat again? Do you want to choose a new one? Do you want to find a new one? So if you go, I am smoking, I stop smoking, I feel anxious, then I still feel anxious, so I start overthinking. So then what can I do to stop feeling anxious and overthinking? Oh, let me smoke again. When you smoke again, you can go that same pattern repeating till infinity. You can go a different way of finding addictions for eternity, or you can stay smoking forever until you realize that smoking doesn't save you. That's limitation. You go out and then you go back. Permanence would mean you go out and then you keep going out in the same way. Although you repeat the patterns, You're always staying the same because you're choosing to stay the same because you're present. This would be like weed, for example. Weed is a way of staying completely present. So once you're completely present, you're noticing the patterns. Although they keep repeating, you notice them. You don't do anything about it until you get a choice. And then again, you can choose infinity, eternity, limitation, and permanence. So you could stay forever in the same pattern if you keep choosing permanence. And that's the four nodes: infinity, eternity, limitation, and permanence. Now we have to explain why they're pointing x and y axis by using this graph right here. The x-axis is formed by the black and white mentality. Yes and no, right and wrong, good and bad. North and south is the ascensional matrix: fear and love, hate and love, judgment and love, enlightenment, fear, all those higher degrees, lower degrees. So you go from hate, fear, pride. Just find the consciousness matrix and you're going to realize about what it means to go up in ascension. The ascensional matrix would be fear, hate, judgment, pride, courage, joy, bliss, blah, blah, blah. And you keep going up and up and up and up. So that's north and south, ascension. East and south is black and white. That's why I've selected each north, each south, each east, and each west with the color. In the north, you can see purple. In the south, you can see red. In the east, you can see black. In the west, you can see white. East and west, black and white. East means black because you're going to infinity. You're going into a void. So the expectation of going into infinity means that you finally have to find a way of structuring. So that's why it's black, because it is a void, you need light. The contrast. To actually break out of a constant infinity loop, you would need light so that you can get clear. Once you get clear, you can find structure. Once you find structure, you can learn out of infinity, out of the void. If you go to limitation, for example, you're constantly structuring. So what you need is freedom. You need a void. You need a moment of silence. You need black, pitch black, voidless anxiety. You need anything that can get you out of constant structure, like you're a box. You need someone to break the box. So that's why limitation is white, because white is light. When there is a lot of light and light is all over, you need night. So that heat comes down, so that you can start relaxing, so that you can have peace, freedom. That's why black and white. East is black, west is white. Eternity. Purple and red. Purple is the highest degree of color. UV, violet, ultraviolet light. It's the highest degree of light. Therefore, that means that it's the highest way of going, the highest ascension path. Then there is permanence, infrared, the lowest degree of light. So if we were to use the colors, east is black, north is violet, west is white, south is red. If you got a choice every single time we repeat three patterns, that starts getting complicated, because you could do 1, 2, 3, get a choice, and then choose 1, 2, 3, again get a choice, and then choose 1, 2, 3, again get a choice, and you can go back 1, 2, and 3. So that could create a closed loop. That would mean I still feeling empty, like constantly void like. I start breaking out, and then when I break out, I start finding higher degrees of consciousness. Until I found a way of choosing. When I chose what I wanted to do, I limited myself because I felt I went up too much. And then you start going to structure. and you start structuring and structuring and structuring. This is structure. You start structuring. Then you get a choice once again, and you decide to go to permanence. You feel like you have a higher degree structure of a new pattern. So you choose to repeat it, and you come back here. And this is when this turns around from being two-dimensional, like a closed square, rectangle, call it what you want. Instead of being this two-dimensional, it starts being this three-dimensional, because it becomes this. You go from here, self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking, you break out, you come back, you come back. And then when you come back to the beginning, instead of going straight to close the loop, you go up in a higher degree. So then you get a choice once again, and you get to choose. Do I want to repeat? Do I want to find a new one? Do I want to find a new one? Do I want to find a new one? So if you can see, this is 3D. This is 2D. That's why life is so complicated, because every third pattern you repeat, you get a choice. And you can close the loop by repeating the same pattern, and still you're going to be in a higher degree of consciousness, inevitably. So this is one type of patterning, when you do a closed loop. Now there's another one which could be infinite. Now there's another one which could be infinite permanently. And then you could do infinite eternally. Then you could do limiting eternally. You could do limiting permanently. There's so many different ways to choose, because you got 4 choices that repeat every 3 times. So by the third time, you get a new one. Then you start choosing, you get a new one. That's how the success matrix works. You go comfortable success, pressing failure, expansive success. You get a choice, and you choose from the 4 nodes, and then once again you repeat. Self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking, you get a new choice. You have to choose how to get out. So you have awareness, clarity, embodiment. That's why there is a higher degree up until the 3rd level. Because when you repeat the same pattern again and again, you're never repeating it in the same degree. So first it was comfortable success. Now you're repeating. Now you have understood that it's self-sabotage what keeps you there. So you keep going and going and going. So you repeat it. Now you understood that all you need is awareness. So you get out. So you start becoming aware and aware and aware. And that's when you finally get a choice, and you're probably going to choose a new one. So that's how it works. The success matrix goes from comfortable success to pressing failures, expansive success. Then you realize it's self-sabotage, anxiety, and overthinking. And then you realize you can get out with awareness, clarity, and embodiment. Once you become a master of embodiment, you start choosing. And you start choosing whatever you want. Because you can literally go out, get a choice, and go out again. And then get a choice, and then go up. And then you could literally just explore, because you've completely understood that all is a choice. So if you've become the embodiment of higher understanding, which is this, that we're going to talk about after we talk about the driving factors. Because, like I said here, comfortable success, pressing failure, expansive success. You become conscious, self-sabotage, anxiety, overthinking. You realize you can get out through awareness, clarity, and embodiment. Once you start becoming embodied, like I said, you always get the 4 choices. So you realize that there are driving factors. What are the driving factors? To make it simple, there are 3. You, your thoughts, and your consciousness. You as in your sensations, your thoughts as in the perceptions you get through those sensations, consciousness as the conceptions through the perceptions you get through your sensations. That means instantly reacting, slower reactions, and immediate responses. Now, the driving factors are pretty simple. When you're self-sabotaging, you constantly find a way to find sensations that keep you always instantly reacting. That means I like what I feel when I touch this, so I will keep touching that until I can find a new way of touching something that makes me feel the similar way, and I constantly repeat touching, touching, touching. So this would mean smoking, because every single time you smoke, you get a dopamine hit. It makes you feel good. It gets you out of anxiety, so you smoke. Fucking, which means every single time I have sex, I have this pleasurable orgasm, so it makes me feel so good that I repeat the same pattern. You eat, every single time I have pleasure through eating, I get this sensation, so you're constantly reacting. It's instant. System 1. Think fast, think slow means system is reaction. System 1 is reaction. System 2 is responses. So in system 1, you use the part of your brain that simply reacts. In the slower system 2, you use the part of your brain that responds through conceptualizing, through perceiving, through rationalizing, through your logic. Now, once you become aware of the fact that you can keep yourself self-sabotaging through these three things, you can also become conscious of what keeps you always in the loop of anxiety. Basically, if you want to understand, because I just realized I've been speaking for a long time, this would be the most simple teaching. Like, I could summarize the whole video with this whole quote. Although most people like complexity, I like complexity too. So this would be the most simple. Then this would become more simple, yet complicated. Because from here, it's the essential teaching. That's the essence of this teaching. Then this is a little bit more complicated, then this is a little bit more complicated, then this is a little bit more complicated, then this is a lot more complicated, then this will become a lot more complicated. Then we have to start understanding this and this. It gets complicated so that you can have a completely new way of understanding your reactions, your responses, and your concepts, your conceptualization. Why? Because if you truly want to understand the most complex system of the world, which is you gotta understand it deep into the core of existence, which is the driving factors. So if you stayed up until here and you want to keep going, because I'm going to keep going, just pay attention, because this is the essence of the teaching. You could have left by now. If you're still here, it's surprising. I don't know why, and I don't know what brought you until here. I'm just having so much fun, so I'm going to keep explaining. Then if you found this as the essence, you can keep going with this, then you can keep going with this, then 1, 2, 3, then we have to get complicated with this, then we have to get a little bit more complicated with this and this. Once we do that, I'm going to summarize it here, and we're going to end it there. So if you keep going and you want to understand more, what keeps you self-sabotaging is yourself, your sensations. Through what? Constantly reacting. You live something, you find a sensation, and then you react to keep finding that same sensation in new experiences. Like I said, you could, there's 3 examples, the most carnal ones: smoking, eating, and having sex. Smoking, sex, and eating. Those are the 3 most carnal ones. So for example, smoking would be, I just want to feel good because I feel so anxious, I want to get out of this, so I want to smoke. And then you feel good. Then you find that sensation. You want to find a way of keeping yourself through that sensation. Now, if you want to go into business matters, for example, I constantly make money, so I want to feel good by finding new ways of making money, better ways of making money, always around money, because that gives you pleasurable sensations. Then you get thoughts, which gets, like I said, a lot more complicated. Thoughts is about rational, left-minded, and all about perceiving. So you live through your perceptions. Say, for example, through everything that I just explained, you've only perceived about 0.2% of everything that I said. You've perceived that little bit. Everything that you took from here, you're going to start looking at it from that perspective. So say, for example, you have a new experience after this video, you're going to look at it through the perspective of this video. And then that's what's going to get you the ability to start responding slower to the system 2. Your responses will become a lot more clearer because you have understood the whole complex system of what you are. Do you get it? You constantly find a way of repeating the same patterns because your sensations tell you that makes you feel good, so you instantly react to find those same patterns. Self-sabotage. Anxiety always keeps you looking at your thoughts, which create perceptions that create a perspective that constantly gets you to respond slower. So you're always anxious because you're always looking to look at everything from that perspective. And now everything can be looked at from one single perspective. That's why this whole teaching has 9 levels, 9 degrees, 9 ways of understanding it. Like I said before, the most simple one being this whole quote. In the knowledgeable realm, the form of the good is the last thing to be seen, and it is reached only with difficulty. Once one has seen it, however, one must conclude that it is the cause of all that is correct and beautiful in anything, that it produces both light and its source in the visible realm, and that in the intelligible realm it controls and provides truth and understanding. So anyone who is to act sensibly in private or public must see it. Plato, The Republic. See? That's the essence. You could look at everything through only that. Although that would be perceiving through one single perspective, and that is too limiting. So you won't be able to actually perceive every single experience through that single quote. So you want to start complicating it to have more degrees, to start looking at it from a different angle and new experiences. That's why you get more complicated. Understanding is the heartwood of all spoken words. Do you see? It gets a little bit more complicated, and then it gets more complicated, and then it gets more and more and more, and that's how your heart starts opening up to new perspectives, new degrees of consciousness, and you start perceiving through higher degrees, higher degrees, higher degrees, and you break out into consciousness. Conceptions through immediate awareness. I've gained this ability over time, to constantly look at myself through a consciousness matrix. I can choose to respond to the most carnal desires, and yet when I'm responding through those carnal desires, I look at myself through the observer, which means that I conceptualize what I'm going through, and I immediately become aware of it so that I can have the ability to garner it over time. That means you can do it too, which means when you become aware enough, you become conscious. And when you become conscious, you start conceptualizing your experiences. When you start turning them into concepts, you immediately become aware of everything. After I've conceptualized this whole teaching, I immediately became aware of all the things that come into this in real life. So I have the ability to look at all this and just ground it right here now. After I leave this video, I'm going to go have a workout. I'm probably going to look at it through this whole perspective, because you gain the ability to become conscious through conceptualizing and then immediately using it to become aware of all things. And that's when, once again, it gets more complicated, because you get a choice. After you realize that you can choose to repeat the same patterns, you can choose to create new patterns, and then you can choose to respond through new patterns, you can become conscious of a new choice. And when you become conscious of a new choice, for example, in this case, I could stop the video right now. That's a choice for me, because I've become conscious that all of this doesn't matter. You're probably not even watching it. Although that's me going back and choosing self-sabotage, because I'm limiting myself. If I keep going, maybe there's someone that eventually looks at this and finds value in it. Who knows? See, that's me infinitely opening up. I could eternally just keep speaking about this same concept, or I can permanently keep myself just here. Eternally would be talk about this whole thing. Permanently would be talking about just the 4 nodes. See, I get a choice. I'm doing it real life right now. And what am I choosing? Infinite. I'm going to choose to keep going. So once again, you get, through you, become aware of the thoughts that make you conscious. Once you repeat that pattern, you get the choice and you choose. What do you want to do? You're going to start feeling your sensations. You're going to start realizing your perceptions, and you're going to start conceptualizing. And once again, you get a choice. Whatever you choose, you're going to become conscious of the fact that you're constantly choosing through an instant system 1 that is created through reactions. Then you're going to break out. You're going to find out that you're constantly responding a lot more slower through the system 2. Then you're going to break out. And then you're going to become immediately aware of all things, all that is God consciousness. And that gives you, once again, the final choice that gets you to explore as you wish. Boom. That's how you break out of it all. So that's the third one. You got it. Now, what is this triangle thing that exists here? Look at this tattoo that I got in my hand. That's a Merkaba that has an enneagram that says I am you in the middle. So this is a moon, this is a sun, this is a Merkaba, and this is an enneagram that says I am you. I'm not gonna get into that because it's a lot more complicated. Although I've tattooed it for myself so I can remember it for the whole life. That's what I'm telling you because for me it's important. Now, I'm only gonna use the up and down triangles. If you would be able to turn this thing around and look at it from this driving factors being the north and this success matrix being the south, that would put it into eternity and permanence, right? Because south is permanence, north is eternity. That means that this triangle, the one that is going right, is constantly getting you to ascend your consciousness, always looking to become conscious of the driving factors. And then the left triangle is always getting you to limit yourself so that you can stay permanent, so that you can permanently exist, so that you can become conscious of the fact that you're always repeating this same pattern. Self-sabotage, anxiety, and overthinking, awareness, clarity, and embodiment. That means that all of your life is both a game of ascending and staying permanent, ascending and staying permanent, ascending and staying permanent, until you go back to the center and realize that you always have a choice. That's why the four nodes are at the center. Because if we were to, like I said, north, eternity, south, permanence, and then there's a triangle that goes down and a triangle that goes up, right? And then there's the four nodes at the middle. This would mean that when you start ascending your consciousness and you realize all the driving factors that lead you to being aware, clear, and embodied, you're gonna come back, or you can choose to come back, and you're gonna always come back to realize that it's all just to become aware, clear, and embodied. So your thoughts, and your consciousness means that you're always becoming embodied, clear, and aware. So that you can finally find the way of up, down, up, down, up, down. You get to the middle and become consciously embodied, clearly thoughtful, and aware of you. Know thyself. Once you get to the know thyself, you become liberated. When you get to know thyself, you start choosing because you become conscious of the fact that there is always four choices, four nodes after every three patterns. And that would be the equation to life. Life is three patterns through four choices. So that's the equation. You repeat three patterns and get four choices to choose from. And there is always 5 X, Y, Z, and on top of that, you get A, time, and B, space. So that's how you can overcomplicate it. You get 3 patterns, 4 choices, 5 ways. That means you repeat 3 patterns and you get 4 choices that lead to one of 5 . ways. That means this would be infinity, this would be eternity, infinity, eternity, limitation, permanence, and then this is what gets complicated. This is what gives it dimensionality. This is what gives it temporality, because that gives it space so that it can happen over time. And this gives it space. So infinite, eternal, limiting, permanent, temporal, and spatial. You got 5 ways: infinite, eternal, limiting, permanent. Oh, there's actually, oh my God, there's actually 7. Dimension, temporal, space. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I don't want to overcomplicate it. Definitely, we should just get it over that. Yeah, because the equation is gonna work. Yep. I'm gonna leave this out, and we're gonna talk about that later. That's 7 actually. So this would be the easiest equations. 3 patterns times 4 choices times 5 ways. That means 1, self-sabotage, 2, anxiety, 3, overthinking, 4 choices, 1, infinity, 2, eternity, 3, limitation, 4, permanence, and then 5 ways. You get infinite, eternal, limiting, permanent, and dimensional. And this encompasses time and space. So the equation would be 3p, 3 patterns, times 4 choices, times 5 ways. The equation for life is that. So life is 3 patterns, 4 choices, 5 ways. That's how complicated it can get. Because like I said, you're constantly going up, as in ascending your consciousness, and then coming down to realize why you're ascending your consciousness, until up and down, 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 you get to the realization that all is to know thyself, and then you unblock the life equation. Yep. There we go. You unblock the life equation. So this is the life equation. Ascending, descending, ascending, descending, ascending, descending, until you get to know yourself as the root cause of why you exist, and you can choose to do what you want through using the life equation. 3p, 4c, 5w. That is it. And then, to put it simply, this is the reason why we're teaching all of this. The essence of life is to ground higher understanding into everyday matters. So that's why we have done this whole video. If you stayed up until here, please subscribe, comment. You can subscribe to my newsletter that I'm gonna actually just create a post on this whole thing summarized right now. Well, actually, I'm gonna do it in a couple of hours. I'm gonna create a newsletter so you can subscribe to get constant notifications, newsletters, which I call truths, to your inbox Sunday and Tuesday. Now you can also get the Ascension portals, which you'll get as a gift from the newsletter, which will take you eventually to realize that there is something deeper, and I'm going to be creating a course that you can get out after that, which will come after that. So in essence, if you stayed up until here, please subscribe, comment, like, share this video if you found it interesting, if you found it that it teaches you something. This is a big vision, and I'm gonna be channelizing. I'm gonna be channeling this into smaller, more simpler nuggets of wisdom tomorrow. So you can also follow my Instagram where I can share that with you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The essence of this teaching, like I said, is ground higher understanding into everyday matters. That's why we're learning. That's why we learned everything. That's why life exists. You're literally, your existence, the reason why you exist is to ground higher understanding into everyday matters. Grounding higher understanding into everyday matters. So if you want to leave with a quote, the reason you exist is to ground higher understanding into everyday matters. I'm going to choose that, put it at 48. I'm going to make it bigger. Yeah, we're going to make it bigger. And that's it. The reason you exist is to ground higher understanding into everyday matters. Well, this is an understanding. Yeah, whatever it is, you understand it. The reason you exist is to ground higher understanding into everyday matters. That's what would mean to be comfortable in success. When you have reached know thyself. So this right here is the highest level of the center of self-sabotaging. Or like we said here, comfortable success. Know thyself is literally the highest degree of comfortable success. That's why, like I said, the essence of this teaching, the reason you exist is to ground higher understanding into everyday matters. And I quote. Thank you. Once again, subscribe, like, comment, Instagram, newsletter. You do you. I love you. Hope you like this.